Okay. We have a very complicated child today, and we're going back to Evan Ezer for 1 week. I'm giving myself permission for that, as I said when we started our time, that I would give myself permission. And I was in, that would be last Friday. I was davening in the old city, and someone came up to me and he told me, he's older, his person was divorced and trying to get married. And he told me that he heard in the name of El Yashiv that every single American is legal gospel. Right? Every single American, with any man with any woman is legal gospel. Therefore, if someone goes on a date, they have to keep all the chumras of legal gospel. But he asked me if that was true.
I hope he's not going to do something we follow here.
No, you're joking. You're joking. But I'll tell you, I was in a certain place in New York. I won't mention where it was. And there was a guy whose wife had passed away, right, from Yenamakla. And he told me he was getting suggestions from women who were married. Yeah, because they're having terrible marriages. They want to get divorced, but they don't want to. Yeah, they don't want to like complete the divorce until. So yeah, that's an interesting. Maybe next week. Okay, but in any event, Lamaisa, just a question. And I did call the Rav today. I did call Rav David Morrison today. We'll get to that and find out like what Rav Yashin. I knew it wasn't really what Rav said. But Rav Yashin said I think there were three people you could trust in what he said. One of them was Rav Frati. One of them was Rav Darzi. Yeah, Rav Darzi asked the child Rav Yashin. He would think to get exactly what he meant. The famous story of Rav Yashin. Two people came to ask him about twist ties on Shabbos. And they were like, right, one back there. And the first one he said it's us the right. The second one says, what's Latzchil? It's like these two guys met like. He said, yeah, the first one asked me a shot like this. He told him to say it twice. That's the right. The second one asked me once. He said, that's what's Latzchil. Anyway, so with Eliyashin, it was Shelis Sochem Chetzi Tshuva, because you had to know what you were asking. Otherwise, you're okay. Anyway, so we get to what if you get a Levo Gospel? So Gemara in Kedushin, Daf Peil from an Aleph. The Gemara is a story. It says, first of all, Amarava Baal Bir Ein Koshim Im Yichud. And then it brings the story of Rabibi. He went to Rav Yosef's house. By the way, Yosef was blind. Right? So they bring here, that you can have Heter of Baal Bir. You might find somebody who's blind. People who are blind it's known they have more sensitivities to hearing and other things. So, right. So Lamaisa, they were eating together. Right. Again, it seems like actually my Chavis told me it's not Rabibi because you might get that confused with that's young. It's her baby, right? Baby, right? Baby boy. Okay, so baby boy, I should pronounce it properly. We don't want to get confused here. So baby boy. So they used to eat together, and when the time came to retire to go to sleep, so he went upstairs and said, "Please take the ladder away." I'm not sure how he's going to get down in the morning. But okay, maybe he's going to die be Yechidus. I don't know. But buy a beer in Rosh Hashanah. Shimon Bey boy that he was guys today. Was guys with Rabbi Yosef's wife. He was sitting there. They had in yeshivas amal. They had something called kest. Bucher who every week, every day he comes to the service. That's called legal guys today, right? So Rashi here says a very interesting line. The dark of a quote in a few words. He said something that like many, many pens were broken to try to figure out what he meant. He said, oh, Shoshbaina, right? Shoshbaina hu v'gaispo. It says two things. Shoshbaina Rashi says, Balas Brislo. So Balas Bris. It's like very intriguing word. What it means to be a Balas Bris with somebody, like a pact, a Balas Bris. But Shosh already is, that's already something which is very, very great kirva. So, Lamaisa going into this sugya, basically two mahalchim. Two mahalchim how to understand Libo Gospel. We're going to see a third mahalch when it come out with in the end. And actually, there's really like five mahalchim. All of Lamaisa we're going to deal with probably two or three of them. And the first one we found in the Rav Yoah, a very unfortunate story about a woman who was very, very poor, apparently. She had to go look for parnasa. And she was traveling alone, and she happened to meet up with a man along the road. And then, they were talking, they were schmoozing. And then another man came along, Lamaisa. And as she reported it, one of them was Ma'anasar in the end. Okay? So Rav Yo's trying to figure out, is this called Baratzim? Does she have to divorce her husband now? Because the fact that she was together with this man for a while, does that make it a getter of Libo Gaspa? Yeah. Um, and Lamaisa, from the course of how he describes and how he learns this Gemara, right? You see that it's like a relationship with there was some sort of level of relationship was developed. Right.
Recently, this if there was the gospel, there is no din of inus. She cannot be honest by the man if she was the gospel for him. Everything's not what we're coming out.
It will be harder to. It's harder. It's more difficult to say that it's always. Yeah, it's more difficult. I don't know if Ad Kidei Kachi was saying that, but Lamaisa, once it's not, once it's not that, so then it's already it's already out of the picture. It's already not enough that she should have to divorce her husband. Okay, I'll go put him. Lamaisa, that's one mahalach from you see from the Rav Yah. Lamaisa, it seems very close in that getter, right? Rav Moshe says in his tshuva that it means that he says like this. He says in Rashi, you have a gospel and there's a type. There's more time for somebody who he has already a kesher relationship with. Moshe, this tshuva is what here?
Right, yeah, it was filtered. It was filtered.
Where is it?
I saw that thing.
Oh yeah, it's here. It's on page 4, right? So in bold here. He brings the Rashi and he says like this: Tahainu l'reis v'yedidus, shezeh otam l'chein misavelo b'yoser. Right. So I was just finished teaching in Chassan. I was teaching Chassan for like 2 months, and we're talking more towards the end where it's a little bit more intimacy. And Maisa, that's the Indian. In the Svarim, they say a lady needs more of an emotional relationship, and the more emotional it is, and the more, it is, then the close relationship. If somebody coming every single day, she talks to him and maybe he thanks her for the food, right? And he's noticed the things, and he's Sam Lev on her. So that develops more of a relationship. But you'd see from here, and I saw like one of the storms they bring from the Dvar Halacha, you have to be Hamish, It's not enough just that you're friendly, right? Because Lamaisa, it's a good meter to be friendly. Now,
Self-ace.
right,
I hate
you see that, okay, friendly with the other gender, that's ready. But you see Rabbi Yaakov coming in, right? By his Levaya, there were nuns there, right? And they said when he would walk to Yeshiva, he would pass by and he would say good morning to them. And I would say good morning. And he said he was the only one. He was the only one. It's a good meter to be uh, friendly people. Again, when it comes to the opposite gender, you have to be very careful. Right? I told someone this morning, you look in Simon Chav Aleph, I think it's the only place in Shulchan Aruch it says mode. Yeah, you have to be really, really careful. A man has to be really, really careful about his interaction with people of the other gender because it could easily lead to a very bad place. Yeah, as we know many stories like that. Anyway, but that's one mahal. Libo gospel means that does he need this Reyos thing? According to that, anytime you meet anybody, right? I told you a story, I was on the plane and there was a non-religious girl sitting next to me. We didn't talk for the first 10 hours to LA. She spilled boiling hot coffee all over me. And I told the waitress, I said, man, this girl needs more coffee. It's spilled, yeah. He's like, why do you get upset? I told her, I can share them with I can't share with things in bed. Anyway, we started talking, and well, it's to get Reyes, Yedidus. I said, she told me she's becoming a Baal Tshuva, she's going to classes. I complimented her. I said, that's right. I gave her chizuk. But stay at Yedidus and Reyes. You can't say that every single American with every single woman, right? And I spoke to Morgan this morning, and we'll get to what he really said. But, well, I said, that's how you know already, I think. He said like this, he told me, Rabbi Yosef made a lot of jokes, right? Rev Israel, who's his son-in-law, right? Right. He also makes a lot of jokes, but it was really much more. We asked him, on the plane. She died on the plane. He said, "Yeah." She said, "But it disturbs the people." I said, "Tell them it's a painful plane. It flies better. We'll get there." Right. One time I was davening on the right side, and I like the woman came. She just pushed the car. The left side, like Rabbi Kiva, at the end. So like, different opinions. His father held a little differently. But in any event, Rav Israel makes a joke, it's like everyone laughs. Like, he said, Rav Elyashiv made a joke. He said, like, everybody was like trembling, and no one had the audacity to ask him, are you joking? But Rav David Morgenstern did. And he said, when Rav Elyashiv said that, he was joking. He said, every American. But like I asked him, is there any truth behind the joke? He said, there's truth, but it's not halachic truth, you know. In other words, the fact that Americans are, and I spoke to a guy in LA this morning, he said, yeah, he got any woman, you know, he was he worked in a certain business, yeah. He was in with women a lot. They would come in the store, they were working for him, this, I can speak to a few minutes, you know. But it's not let Yedidus Reyes. It's just called being friendly. My wife's from Rio de Janeiro. You get in a taxi, they're like they're your best friends already. They're talking to you like that. But it doesn't yet mean that it's legal gospel. You have to understand that. Okay. Anyway, I'll go upon him. That's as far as that goes. Lamaisa, but there is an Aruch HaShulchan, which the poskim have a lot of trouble with, right? And I brought it here on the Makakolas. It's in Simon Kaf Beis above. And the Aruch HaShulchan says in Yani Mitzvah, they do business together. In Yani Mitzvah, he says, right? He says, Sheyesh Lem is a ha'ira alidei Yani Mitzvah. So the Sheikh Levi, he says, it's hard to hear that, you know, you're doing, especially today, Lamaisa, businessmen have told me there's this group called Me Too. Me Too. Me Too is like standing up for women's rights who have been, what's the right word?
Violent.
Violated or, you know, um, they won't use abuse, but you want to make sure men don't, what's the word I'm looking for? Mistreat them. Just, yeah. So the likes of men are like really on guard now, you know, because they're getting sued left and right. How does that affect those? We'll have to figure that out. But he says it's hard to believe that's like a guy who goes out with a woman for a business lunch, let's say. You know, and I know people like all the time they're doing it. It's part of their job, you know. You know, and sometimes it's a woman that they can, but that doesn't yet make it yedidus Boreas, right? It might be the opposite. You know, they're trying to squeeze as much money out of each other as they can, or like get the prices down as much as possible. So, so he has trouble with the Aruch HaShulchan, as do other poskim. Yeah, since Haezer also, and other poskim have trouble with it. But Lamaisa, we'll say very pashut mahalach in the Aruch HaShulchan, and it answers up a lot of questions, which I brought here. This Binas Adam. The Binas Adam here says like this. It's in Beis Hanoshim Siman Yud Zayin, and he says like this. Bein Advarim, he says, she mitzira, like generally we have a cloud, Baila Be'ir, because she's afraid, yeah? She's afraid that her husband could show up, right? What happens if they're already Hamish? Yeah? They know each other. Or like like the Chayyim says, it also talk with some says, he's allowed to be there. A plumber comes over to the house, yeah? Or any worker. And so the husband's not going to be surprised if he gets home and he sees her there, and maybe they're even talking. You know, maybe they're haggling about the price, or he's telling her something, right? Damn, she finds a guy, and he comes home and he finds like a weird guy in the house. He's gonna be like, what is this guy doing here, right? What if it's a guy who's there, especially like the guy who comes for Kest every day, he's there, so you expect him there. There's not so much Yira. She's not she's not afraid of this person. And when Mela, once you have that, so then that's how the Bina Sadaf learns this chachash of Gaisibo, right? And it's a shigol chumrah, because you can have that quite easily. You know, I don't know if you don't really need Yedidas for that, right? And I believe that's where the Aruch HaShulchan is coming from, right? Once you have a kesher binyanim nistar, right? So let's say the woman is like works for a certain company, you know, and she has a coworker, and so this coworker has to come over, and he's a man. They have to talk, you know. So then, so that could be a problem. He said that. The Vosser adds, of course, Akolofia Makam Basman Bahamatzef, right? Right. And I can't tell you how many stories I heard. You know, I think it's like almost every few weeks. A story, they're working together, and this happened, and that. I was in an office in New York, and like they needed to send like a print out a document, and like on the desktop, like disgusting. It's in a full office, like because Lamaisa, the guitar have been influenced today, you know, and like things which were once considered terrible, like that's Maisa Young today, you know. So Rav Morgenstern told me this morning, he said it's not mamish necessarily changed the halacha, right? The halacha, you know, stays what it is, and the Rambam says they grew up together. In other words, there's going to be a gather where they're with the Bible of the year. Sorry, the guy Sibah Batson, right? The guy, the Chokmah is accepted as a woman. It's accepted as a Umrah, but it's a Shita, right? Rav Ever told me that every Chokmah is the halacha in your day. Yeah. It's a shita. You have to be mitchashiv with it, right? But Malcolm Sura after this, right? Maybe we'll be making like it's true, right? It's true again. But Lamaisa,
So
right?
if it's only going to be the Mahmirim that take it on, they're not the ones with this issue.
Yeah. I don't mean like a chumrah, like I don't know what. Yeah, I mean it's that it means Malcolm Sura Gadol Behesem Ruba. You can be somewhat on the other ones, right? On the other poskim. But the point is, he told me something really fascinating. I was in South Africa, and I went to a couple of girls' schools to speak. Remember Travis Wiener here in Nova Yichud? I said, "Oh, we're going to be learning in L. Work on it, prepare a few days. It'd be good for me, it'd be good for you." Anyway, so one of the girls asked me, she said, the heter of Pesach Psuach if the door is open. In South Africa, they have electric fences around every house. Nobody ever walks into anybody's door, which is very, in most cities, it's like that. So, Mauricio told me, there's no heter today. I was like, yeah, Florida knows that. It's not so much.
It's good like that. If the door's open.
But
When the door's in anywhere, he's good. The door's open. The kids won't come in.
there were
Yeah. It's not that's there's nowadays there's South Africa. Meaning even here, if doors open, the kids are magic. You don't think people are gonna the kids there's like
When the building's here, it's much
okay.
more
No,
angry.
it's not Hinami, right? I mean,
You know each place.
yeah, that again, a call of Magos Vanish. The people, he told me in Rebel Yosef's house, you could just walk in the door. Yeah, right. I know. I was by who was it in Bnei Brak, Rav Israeli wine shop. Right, his door was all the time open. People, they just walked in and out.
I know I don't know if it's still like this. I was told in bungalow colonies, even with the door shut, the kids will come into other people's bungalows.
That's an interesting point you bring up. Yes, okay, that's the okay. Yeah, if kids come in and then that's another issue. Go put them lemais. We have two mahalchim. Yeah, we have a mahal of mikra din that you need, as the Rambam says, they grew up together or they're kirva, they're related somehow. That's one mahal, right? And he says it's like specifically prevalent with brother-in-laws. That's like a really big problem. Yeah. A brother-in-law, and a sister-in-law. So, they'd be basically the same age. They could be very young, right? He says he gets every, week questions like that. You have to be really, really careful in that area, right? Venus Adam, which is, this is long rap, but you have to share with, especially today. If they're working together and there's it's all right, it's accepted, it's makubal that he's there. So that already could be get of libo gaspa, right? It's agav. The Shevet Levi argues on Aruch HaShulchan Maker Adin. It's because the Chazanish had a kula in Baal beer. There was some physics fear that a woman has, and even if they're allowed to be together, the fear doesn't go away, right? So you would argue maybe on this whole the Chazanish and the Shevet Levi would argue on the whole anacha of the right of the Chayadim, right? And when the Shevet Levi concludes, he says like this. He says, right? He says, El Shakirvas Mischar, Kol Mini Kirvas Kiyosem, Shmepian LeRiboy Dvarim, Oskin Ben Ish Isha. Work on a project for hundreds of hours together. So it's very hard. There shouldn't be some kirva between them. And I know stories about bosses and secretaries. They spend like thousands of hours together, and they're all the time. So, and it happens. Just be very, very careful in those areas. It's very kedai to have a male secretary if a man can do that. Okay. There's a couple other things. We don't have much time. I just want to conclude. Right. So the Rambam and the Rambam I saw. Moshe learns the Rambam like him. Right. They grew up together. It means that they're having Adidas. From the Chayadim, it's much more that he learned the Rambam, like that he learned. That's that. But Lamaisa, there's another Baila Be'ir which we find. Two other Baila, Libo Gaspo. One Libo Gaspo is Harvey Nashim. Yeah, a guy who's like a boss, and he has he works in a woman's clothing store, and he has 20 women working for him. Right. So there, in sense, Lamaisa, that's called Gaisa Bay, but not because of Adidas, because they're afraid of him. They're an employee, they get a check from him, and so there's a certain maybe. So it's another getter of legal gospel which has to be taken into consideration.
And nowadays, there's so many laws for that.
Again, that's me too, right? So
the employer, there's like serious laws
It comes from the other side. We could care less about the
I'm
issue,
just
just
saying,
like
but
get
that
money out of
no, but that makes the husband, that makes the man more cautious. So you have to know
it. And
how
it makes
to.
you
No, but
worse.
even before this, so an employer, a male employer with female employees, and for sure in America, there's like serious laws, like even the slightest comments to go.
Right, right.
What if he does anything to a woman?
If she claims that
Does something. To a woman.
Okay, anyway, I'll go upon him. It's a different getter, yeah, and that has to be, again, if a man, if you're in such a situation, but you can't learn from there to here. It's something else. And the second one is Sugi and Ksubas Daf Chaftes. It's talking about somebody after Grusha, they can't live in the same neighborhood together, and they can't live in the same, and they can't come appear in basin together, right? So Rashi there says that he knows her creases, her amizus, like she goes like this, or she goes like this. They have like their sign language, body language, whatever it might be, how they talk to each other, right? Winks, maybe, right? Whatever it might be. So that's already, that's much more makber. When they were together in a case in intimacy, so then the case of legal gospel becomes much more. But again, as I quote here from the Ryan Lublin, can't learn from that to this, meaning um, that just because, in other words, so the Marion Lublin is talking about a case where a Yavam, or a Yavam actually, she was bas bias by the house of the Yavam. It doesn't make them already begetter arusa in that case, right? They don't go to the chumrah level of like Nefgarjo or something like that. What? Mashiach won't be a Geshash. What?
It's also this is your over here.
The what?
Why is no hashash?
Not when they're engaged. So because they haven't yet lived the life of intimacy yet. This is only those additional halachas. But when they what? What's that?
Even that was not like the same level.
Yeah, no, even arusa, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same level after there was already intimacy between them. Anyway, and so I'm taking it as a Rapacha. If you can't learn from A to B, you can't learn from B to A. Really, meaning just like we're going to say, we're not going to treat a yavama like a grusha, right? So we won't learn the kolam here or there. That means it's not going to be so. We're not. We'll be a big tula to say that it's not limo gospel until you know what creatus remises. So I'm not going to go to that extreme either. Okay. Anyway, Lamaisa, I spoke to Rav Sternbuck about it last Shabbos, yeah, and he said that it's kind of looking at makam vazman baish, right? For some people, it's much easier. Like after one or two conversations, they could already be in a matzav yedidus with somebody. I met someone at the coastal a few days ago, and I took them to Israel. He said, like, what, these are your best friends? Like, since you met them this morning. Like, there's some people like very easy to come to yedidus with them. So in such a person, you have to be more nitzar. You have to realize that you're going to come to the level of Leo Gospel much quicker. Some people you could talk to them 100 times and they won't be yedidus. So that's very important criteria. And again, it depends on that, and of course, it depends on your society. Right? It depends that the society is more accepting, and that's going to create more bonds. Yeah, you could argue maybe also that doesn't mean as much the Adidas in some societies. But Lamaisa, these are the Gedarim that Rashi and the Rambam have have laid down. There was one more point I wanted to bring out. What was that? Oh, the Bergowitz, yeah. So I don't know what Bergowitz actually holds. I spoke to my Talmud who speaks to him every day, right? And so I don't even think I'm going to say over what was said in his name because I don't think it's fair. But like, I think that much we could say, which he says he's going to speak to everything. But somebody who be more casual with, yeah, like how you address, that could be a simon of legal gospel. Right? So,
depends on the society.
what? Yeah, so Mordechai told me today, like, after how many dates is it?
It's cool. 3 4 days. This is like a guy that the casual.
The casual date, yeah. Sure, yeah, if that's enough to make it legal gospel, I think that it's so you told me this morning, shame, one rough, that if you would wear pajamas in front of that person, to me, that's really, I don't,
Depends on society.
right. Someone told me about it in his workplace, so they have pajama day. every men and women coming together in pajamas. He always takes off on that day. But okay, that's already too much. Like already, like that's more than legal gospel. That's crazy. Right? But okay, just dressing more casually considered to legal gospel. You know, depends what. Like how you're dressing, right? But yeah, pajamas. That's probably already past legal gospel. Um, but I'll go upon him. Let's make a now is we have two major gedarim of legal gospel halacha, right? And again, it's no get to buy beer. Some hold it's no get to pesach psuach. It's no get to being nizakal with many women. If all the halachas that have to do with legal gospel. So Ikashita is like Rashi and the Rashi, and that's the way the Rambam is learning. Rav Moshe is learning the Rambam. It means there's a level of balas bris, yeah, which means there's a level of yedidus, a level of kirba, of reyes. That's the ikar halacha. Along the chachmas with the chumrah, as long if there's his aspects for them together, solely for halacha by beer. I don't know if he's extending to other places. If they're doing mitzvah together, or it's accepted that he could be there, right? Because this it takes off the Amos Baila, so that would also be considered Ibn Gaspa. But I'll go on and Baruch Hashem. We've been when I told this to Reb David Cohen, like very upset. He said, like, why are you passing all Americans? They're good people, you mind. So Baruch Hashem, somebody stand up for the Americans. But in any event, but the Nakuda is that, if you're a very, very friendly person and part of your circle is including women as well, so then you just have to be careful. Shouldn't get to a level of Yedidus with a man should not get to a level of Yedidus with a woman, only with his wife, and Hamid and Yavin.